Hello all, welcome to our panel discussion on the AI native enterprise. Today, AI is no longer a just technology conversation. It is becoming a leadership and business transformation conversation. Organizations across industries are moving beyond isolated AI pilots and starting to ask a much bigger question. How do we redesign enterprises for a world where AI becomes embedded into everyday operations, decision making, and innovation? The shift brings enormous opportunities, but also a significant leadership, cultural, and operational challenges. To explore these perspectives, we have an excellent panel of leaders with us today. Let us get started. To start us off, let's first define what this shift really means at the enterprise level. Dr. Krishnan, let me begin with you. What does AI native enterprise mean to you beyond simply adopting AI tools?
Thanks, Avinash, and very good question to get the panel started and rolling. Last year, I completed my doctorate in AI, and I got to interact with a lot of senior leaders. And what is very evident, which also corroborates with many of the recent research, is that while 80% of the organization have invested in some form of AI or the other, only less than 10% are able to realize the ROI. And therein lies the difference between an organization that is successfully adopting, transforming, or in other words, is becoming an AI native enterprise and one that is not. So through my research and interaction with CXO, I have found that AI native enterprise look at AI transformation very holistically and at broadly three levels. One, at a leadership level, where they're able to set up AI as a mindset across the organization. AI is not just an experiment. It permeates right from it being a top priority for CXOs, for the board, who are very closely involved in defining the strategy and establishing that mindset across the organization, establishing the right experimental mindset, the right talent, and the investment. So that's at the leadership level. The second dimension is the organizational dimension, which has three subparts. The first part is to look at AI strategy and ensure that it's not just a technology initiative, but it is the core of how the organizations drive value to their stakeholders. The second subpart is the operating model, which is translating that strategy into execution, where the rubber meets the road, defining the right policies, the investments, and the operating structure. And finally, permeating it across all the functions in the organization, right from sales, marketing, to operations, to delivery, and looking at AI not just as a particular departmental benefit, but cross-department. And the last and most important part of an AI native enterprise is how they are looking at the foundational pillars. AI is rapidly scaling. The regulations are not keeping at pace. So forward-looking AI native enterprise take a very proactive role to this, establishing guardrails, establishing internal policy so that they are experimenting with AI, but doing it responsibly, establishing the right data governance. So in short, they are being very proactive and ensuring that the question is not whether technology can do something, but should it do it at all and in the right manner with a forward-looking principle. So to summarize, an AI native enterprise looks at AI holistically in these three dimensions: leadership, organization, and foundation. That's what I have found.
That's a great perspective, Mr. Krishnan. What it clearly emerges is that AI native enterprises are not just using AI, they are rethinking how organizations operate and create value. So,
That's right.
which brings us to the next challenge, moving beyond experimentation. So, Ms. Veena, let me bring you in here. So, many organizations are still running AI pilots. What separates AI experimentation from a true enterprise transformation?
Sure. Thank you, Avinash. That's a very important question. The distinction is sometimes misunderstood, I would say, and we often misunderstand org-wide adoption to be AI transformation, which is not the case. And there are three stages, right? So from experimentation to transformation, there is also a point solution that can happen in between. Now, let me take the example of something that is very relatable, right? Pager versus a mobile phone, a regular mobile phone versus a smartphone, right? If you compare these three, now when pager happened, it was asynchronous, right? You couldn't interact immediately. It was not live. And then when mobile phone happened, you could interact, but it was a point solution. And then when smartphones happened, there was transformation. I tell you why. When smartphones happened, it basically changed the way we interacted. It changed our social behavior. It also rewired our expectations. We started wanting everything immediately. And hence, every industry had to redefine and reorganize around it. Right? So quick
Yes.
commerce, for example, happened because of that. So now that is what I call as transformation. Right? Now,
Yes.
drawing parallels, let's look at what happened a couple of years back. GPT started, we were experimenting. So we realized that, okay, it could draft messages, emails very beautifully. We started using them. Then travel itineraries, many things, right? What were we experimenting about? We wanted to see what is this technology? What is it that it can do? How well it can do? What is the cost at which it does it? How accurate it is, and so on. And then we started understanding all of this. Models got better, cost got better, especially the inference, the output cost, which was very expensive, which it kept getting better and better. And over time, it progressed really well, right? And
Yes.
from experimentation, we started moving to point solutions. For example, let's take the example of organizations. Most organizations started with a chatbot, especially for the workforce. So if you are looking for a policy, you would go search for the lines, etc., and find it. Now you chat, and then you basically it's a conversation, and you receive the policy statements, right? Now that is still transactional. Because entire organization is using it, it's not transformational. The reason why I'm saying that is, let's assume another situation where as an employee you are actually chatting and you're asking the chatbot, hey, you know what, today I'm getting late, I'm finishing my meetings only by 11, but my regular policy says 10 o'clock is the last cab. Can I get a cab? Is there a deviation that I can take to the policy? Now, if that doesn't exist and the agentic AI solution basically realizes this, it's seeing that it's a common pattern across the organization and recommends this as a revised policy to the policy makers. Ask them for a review and approval, and then it can take its course. But this can be transformational, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is it's not transactional. There is an upstream impact, and then there is a downstream impact as well, right? Now, the other way to test experimentation is, or versus transformation is, if you took out AI from experimentation or a point solution, you can still revert back to the previous process. It will be little discomfort, but you can still revert back, right? But in case of transformation, reverting back would be a little too difficult, right? Because you have cognitively migrated to the new process, and it has transformed to an extent where emotionally you're not attached to the previous process anymore. So things will seem broken already.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to revert back. The third one is, if you look at the metrics in a point solution, you can look at, time has improved, cost has improved, and so on. But in case of transformation, basically, what I define as a compounded strategic reward or a compounded strategic impact has happened. There has been a different strategic business outcome out of it. So I think AI has matured to that extent, and it's important, or it's time for us to tap its full potential. That is why transformation is important. So ultimately, experimentation makes AI visible, and I think transformation makes the enterprise fundamentally different and more intelligent.
That's very interesting analogy and insight, Veena. So once AI moves beyond the pilots, the impact extends beyond the technology teams and starts reshaping how people work and make decisions. So that naturally brings us to the workforce and leadership transformation. So, Mr. Ranan, if you were redesigning your organization today with the AI available from day one, so what would you build differently?
Thanks, Avinash, and good evening, everyone. So I think, to be honest, that question we are all trying to answer today, because the honest answer is most organizations today are bolting AI into the structures designed for a pre-AI world. So if I were really given an opportunity to start fresh, definitely I would flip that, because AI should not be considered as a capability to add, rather it would be the foundation I design around. So I would highlight four things which I would say that will be and must be different in the new era. Number one is that we have to rethink about the organization structure itself. Because for me, first of all, I would definitely start building smaller, denser teams. Because the traditional pyramid exists because the coordination, reporting, knowledge transfer, these are very expensive matter today. But AI is collapsing all of these costs. So instead of large functional silos, I would rather build a cross-functional pod with 5 to 7 people where each member is AI augmented generally supported by specialized agents. So a product manager who can prototype, say like a developer who can design, an analyst who can write. And to be honest, the boundaries blur and velocity multiplies in that way. Number two is the
Fantastic.
biggest advantage what we'll have if I can start fresh is that we can definitely emphasize on data and workflows as the base and the foundation. Because in the present state of organization, these are all afterthoughts. And most enterprises still struggle to move from pilots to production because either their data is still fragmented or their processes were never documented. And today, from day one, then I would rather insist that every workflow is captured, every decision logged, every piece of institutional knowledge is structured. And not because it's tidy, but because that's a substrate AI needs to actually deliver the value at scale. Third thing
True.
is definitely the whole dynamics of the hiring and performance measurement should be done very differently. Because when AI can draft code, analyze, summarize, the scarce skill is knowing what's worth doing, what good looks like. And when the AI is wrong, capture it. I would rather measure people on outcomes and decisions, not by the output or the volume. And I would rather build a culture where using AI is aggressively is the expectation. Because even today, I think in some of the places, people are kind of hiding that and people feel that they need to apologize if they're using AI aggressively. And finally, I would say that the organizational build should be for human AI collaboration, not like automation as a separate entity. Because this is one I think most organizations get wrong. I have been part of organizations where I led the intelligent automation center of excellence as a separate entity which used to get plugged into different business lines. So I would rather design for full automation, rather I would design for collaboration. The biggest production failures I have seen come from teams trying to remove humans entirely instead of redesigning the human AI handoff. So I would build clear escalation paths, feedback loops where humans correct the AI, and that correction improves the system, and accountability structures where someone always owns the outcome. So in short, if I summarize, smaller teams, structured data and the workflow from day one, human AI collaboration as the design principle, not full automation, and the organization that will win aren't the ones with the best models, rather they are the ones whose structure, culture, processes were built to actually absorb what AI can do and empower today.
Yeah, it's a great perspective, Mr. Ranan. I think one important thing is human in the loop or human AI collaboration. That is something everybody need to keep eye when they are building the AI, either it's autonomous or whatever it is, right? Thank you, Ranan. So what we are hearing consistently is that AI native enterprises are being built around intelligence, speed, and adaptability. So which leads to be the another strategic question. So Mr. Vijay, if you can take this question, if AI becomes accessible to everyone, where will a true competitive advantage comes from?
Hi everyone. Thank you, Avinash, for the question. I look at this from two different dimensions. One is at the enterprise level. I think most of the speakers have talked about how you can create an enterprise which is AI first. So as we said, when technology is available to everyone, it is like a table stakes. It's not anymore a competitive advantage. Say, for example, if you and your competitor are using same operating model and same business model, eventually the advantage will be passed on to the customers in terms of the lower costs, right? Then how do you gain that competitive advantage? That's the biggest question. So some other things that I can definitely think of is that, as most traders talked about, really the AI foundations are important, without which you can't do anything. So you need to really work on the foundations. But I will add two more elements to that. And the another important aspect is the change management. See, when we talk about the change management, there are multiple aspects here. One, if you're an enterprise, you need to redefine your workflows and you need to redefine the decision making. One of the important things that we talked about from long time is that how do you push decision making closer to the people who are acting in the workflow, right? So with agentic AI, this is going to be a reality, but the caveat is that instead of people doing things, they are defining the goals for the agents and they are monitoring the outcomes, right? And agents are actually executing things. Another aspect that I would like to bring in here is that when we talk about technology transformations, we are almost every time talking about a single technology, but at an enterprise scale level, there are a combination of technologies which we call it as compound AI, be it business rules or traditional AI or generative AI, agentic AI. You need to use combination of these technologies. In some of our enterprise use cases, you have 20 to 40 solutions working together in combination and trying to address the edge cases and the messiness of the data that you encounter in real world, right? How do you address? And you need to have fallback mechanism to ensure your solution is working for every scenario that is possible in the real world. More importantly, to gain the competitive advantage, if you are an industry leader, you need to continuously do the innovation. So I typically look at two important things as part of the innovation. Not everything you do falls under innovation. If you are already best in our industry, so are you trying to build the solutions which are best in class? Or are you trying to solve the problems which are new to the industry, right? You need to have these kind of solutions in our innovation portfolio. So look at how each of these solutions are evolving over a period of time and reallocate the budgets accordingly, right? So if you have a strong foundation and if you're continuously driving the change management and if you're continuously innovating, that will help you to be at a competitive advantage for over a period of time. So as I said, I will bring in other lens. If you move beyond the enterprise, if you look at the ecosystem level, so nowadays your competitor is not in the same industry. Your competitor is coming from a different industry altogether. So technology is giving an advantage to move to the neighboring industry as well, right? So essentially what I'm trying to say is that AI is reshaping the business value chains, right? Where the value is created, where the value is captured, or the bottlenecks in the ecosystem are changing in the value chain. So when this change is happening at a rapid pace, so as an enterprise, you need to define what role you are going to play in the new value chain, right? So understand, are you a player who is providing the infrastructure, or are you a player who is providing the platform for orchestration, or are you a player who are going to bring up with domain level expertise in a particular industry? So look at your value proposition and see what role you are going to play in the ecosystem. So essentially, if I summarize, one, look at an enterprise level and see that whether you have the right foundations, change management, and continuous innovation. Second, look at the ecosystem. Look at not only our competitors, how the value chain is changing in the industry and ecosystem level, and see what role you play at a big role to gaining that competitive advantage.
Yeah, interesting perspective, Vijay. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so before we close, let us do a quick rapid fire round, short and sharp responses. So, Mr. Krishnan, maybe you can take this question. One word that defines an AI native enterprise.
I would say bold.
Nice, good one. So maybe Veena, if you can take this question, what is the biggest barrier to AI transformation today? Is it technology, culture, or leadership?
I think leadership and vision, more as an enabler than as a barrier, but I think that answers that question as well.
Yeah, thank you, Veena. So which leadership skill becomes most important in AI era, Mr. Ranan?
I would go for growth mindset, because we have been talking about this term for quite some time, but this is the time where leaders really have to practice and encourage people for the growth mindset.
That's great. Yeah, Mr. Vijay, so what is one enterprise process you believe AI will completely transform within the next 5 years?
I believe every process, there is some level of transformation definitely will happen, but I don't see that everything will be when you said completely transformed, I'm assuming that it might be autonomous, right? I don't think that we will be completely autonomous. There will be parts in the process will be autonomous, but there will be other parts which will be where human also plays a big role. And essentially, right now, many of the systems are working in a proactive way. In future, once all these processes are transformed, you try to prevent things proactively rather than working reactively.
Great one. So, Veena, so will AI create more jobs than it replaces?
I doubt, honestly.
Great. It's scary. So
I think
maybe Krishnan, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, not scary yet, but I think maybe other roles outside of AI might uh, shape up.
Yeah, I think that's what industry is saying now. Yeah. Thanks. So, Mr. Krishnan, what matters more in becoming AI native, data quality or a leadership vision?
I would say definitely leadership, and that's what differentiates an organization that is leading this age versus somebody who is still trying to figure it out.
Thank you. So, Mr. Ranan, do you believe every employee will eventually work alongside an AI agent?
I mean, the term agent is very loosely used today. So if I don't give too much of value on the agent part, every employee definitely will eventually work alongside AI. That's for sure.
Great. So, Mr. Vijay, what is one mistake organizations are making in their AI journey today?
One mistake. So don't start with technology. Look at business problems.
Great one, Vijay. Thank you to all our panelists for sharing your perspectives and insights. One thing that clearly stands out from today's discussion is that becoming an AI native enterprise is not just about adopting AI tools. It is about rethinking how organizations prepare, make decisions, and create value in the AI-driven world. The future advantage will not come from AI access alone, but from the leadership, adaptability, culture, and the ability to continuously evolve. Thank you once again to our panelists and audience for being part of this discussion. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.